This is Harsh,
This is Anush.
and we pretend that we know a lot about films. This is Grown Men Crying, episode 1,
And today we're going to talk about.
Taxi Driver.
And the director is.
The great Martin Scorsese.
Yeah, I do like. I've not watched a lot of Martin Scorsese, but I like Martin Scorsese.
I am like a huge Scorsese fan. I have
Yeah.
almost seen his all of his films, other than a few. Like Mean Streets, I haven't seen. I haven't seen The King of Comedy. I've seen the best Scorsese films are Raging Bull, Taxi Driver, of course, The Departed, Hugo, Shutter Island, Wolf of Wall Street, Silence, which was the latest one, Killers of the Flower Moon, Gangs of New York. And,
So I watched Hugo. I watched Wolf of Wall Street. I watched The Departed. I used to call Wolf of Wall Street the boobs movie because that was that featured in most of the scenes. So yeah,
That is true, but it was more than that. But
yeah,
it's
I
fine.
agree. Yeah.
So today we are going to talk about Taxi Driver.
Correct. And and we'll talk about the cast. So cast is Robert De Niro,
Jodie Foster.
Sybil Shepherd is playing Betsy.
Yes, and the I think it's written by Paul Schrader.
That is correct.
Yeah, Paul Schrader, and
cinematographer is
Michael Mann.
Michael Chapman.
Michael Chapman. Sorry, Michael Mann is another director. Sorry, right?
Yeah, and music. Do we have the music director?
Music director. I'm not able to
Oh no, but we know that he also did Citizen Kane.
Yeah, he did some portion for Citizen Kane. That's what I've heard.
Okay.
And he did violence for, not violence. He did violence for Psycho. You remember that?
The violence,
high tones.
Oh yeah.
When the scene comes.
When you see the sound,
the violence.
The shrieks, the shrieky violence,
terrifying
violence.
It's done by him. Actually,
Okay.
he's a pretty good. At the time, actually, I think 70s was probably a very good time for Hollywood cinema because you see all these great films. Citizen Kane was in 60s, I think, right?
No,
60s. This is approximately 1970, 72.
This is 1976.
Yeah, 1976 it is?
Yeah, it is 1976.
Yeah. All right. So we can talk about the plot of the film.
Yes, we will talk about the plot of the film. So you want to go ahead?
Yes. So basically, the plot of the film is it's a character sketch of a person called Travis Bickle, who is a U.S. War veteran, Vietnam War.
Yeah.
And he's been going through some problem, not some problems, huge problems in his life.
Yeah.
And major cause of that is loneliness that we can talk. Yeah, right. And the other thing is that's how he deals with it, right? He actually never deals with it till the end. But for me personally, the film is about the confused masculine, right? Yeah, and the problems that he's having, right? And there are a lot of people, I think, men till this day, and even before that, until the history goes back long ago, even at the time of the Romans, I think men would have related to these problems. In every generation, people would have these kind of problems. With loneliness, these things come. You start questioning, right? You say that there is a saying that the hardest thing a man can do is sit idle for 30 minutes. Right? Which is very true because the most terrifying things are a person's own thoughts.
Yeah, that does sound true. With respect to the movie, I do agree. But what I see mostly is existential angst. I know the history of the character is he's a Vietnam War veteran, but mostly existential angst and the loneliness that comes from that, and his inability to actually make any sort of social connection, be it at his other taxi drivers, his taxi driver community, any friends outside of work, in any sort of family connections. I don't see any connection in there. So and romantic connection. He's not able to talk to women properly.
And probably has never been single because that's the one of the opening.
I mean, he's always been single.
Yeah. He says that I'm in bars and cars and streets and alleys. I've always been God's lonely man. So that's a very good insight into his life prior to that film, because we are not given any backdrop to his story other than that he was a US war veteran. So we can start about how the film opens.
Yeah, so at this point we have to say spoiler alert. Probably because we're going to delve deep into the plot lines, the characters, and even the climax. So if you want to know why you should watch the movie, you should probably skip to the end.
And you should not watch the movie or the podcast either if you are below 18.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So yeah, what do you have to say about the opening scene, like the beautiful opening
Oh
scene?
yeah, the opening scene was good. I mean, you have that beautiful music, and from the smoke, right, comes the taxi.
Actually, the music which it starts from, it's a bit haunting.
Yeah, it is
Right.
a haunt. It is haunting.
It starts with a very high note.
Yeah.
Then the trumpets come, and with the taxi
Yeah. That's
out
true.
of the smoke, it's almost like a fever dream. Right. It almost like it represents this. Even the like the city, how the lighting is done, the darkness, it sort of represents Travis's inner mind.
It's almost like we're in a dream in the movie. It's like throughout the movie, it's mostly darkness. Some during the day, some shots during the day, but it's mostly darkness or dark alleys, or not dark alleys, but it's just these dark rooms that we go into when we talk about Iris character. That was a terrible scene. That was a difficult scene.
The ending scene.
The ending scene and the scene where he talks to Sport, the pimp, and then he takes Iris to the room. Do you remember the small hallway, and then he takes her to the room? That's...
That how you can also see in Joker, right? Joker is basically like Taxi Driver was the inspiration. Taxi Driver and King of Comedy.
Oh, okay.
King of Comedy is also De Niro.
I haven't seen this.
So in King of Comedy, this also happens that Robert De Niro's character it goes through the same kind of like crisis. He's not doing well in his life, sort of like how Joaquin Phoenix Joker, right, goes into that film. I'm forgetting what was his name in Joker. Arthur Fleck. Arthur Fleck.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like that. So you have elements of Taxi Driver in that film, and you have like the general story of King of Comedy.
Yeah, so but then you were able to see parallels from a Taxi Driver to Joker. So what was the parallels you saw?
There are a lot of parallels. See, first thing is 1970, right? 1970s theme, and what was economical, political, whatever it was going on at that time. It's shown both in Taxi Driver and both Joker. And one more similarity is Robert De Niro, Franklin Murray.
Oh, so he's the interviewer.
Yeah, he's the interviewer. Franklin Murray. Yeah, Franklin Murray is played by Robert De Niro, and he's both Travis Bickle.
Oh, yeah,
And there are a lot of scenes. Like the thing is, at that time, what I think is, if there was therapy available, Travis would have actually had a plan to escape. But yeah, but Scorsese, I think the film is literally like 50 years ahead of its time. I think we still have the things that like Taxi Driver reminded of us. It's basically, I think the thing what Scorsese is trying to do is he's trying to show us that what happens to a person when the society alienates them. It's the same thing what happens to Arthur Fleck in Joker.
For me, how I saw alienation here in the movie with the character was not somewhere where the society actually tries hard to alienate, but in a sense it does not allow for the subtleties of his character, for the fact that he doesn't know how to behave with women, he doesn't know how to ask for help, he doesn't know how to make new connections, proper emotional connections, all of that. And then because he's not able to do that, it's sort of like, because he's not able to make proper connections, right, that sort of drives back into the alienation. I think
that's still the story of like many guys.
This is the story
most
of many
the
people.
Guys, most of the guys.
Most guys, yeah. But then some are able, like most people are able to come out of it, and there's a big percentage who are not able to.
Yeah, probably because today there is more awareness, right? For me, in Travis is like basically the story revolves around two women in this life, right? One is Betsy and other is Iris, right? And he ruins like his first relationship because he doesn't have much of a female interaction in his life. Yeah, he doesn't have a female touch, because this is what actually happens in today's day also, right? Let's say he gets his idea about women from other men. He doesn't have an idea of like women from other women. Yeah, there's a one scene where he goes to the like his cabbie friends, and there is this older cabbie who's bald and everything, right? He talks about like this. he talks about, I think it's his imaginary situation, which is like he's just boasting about a thing, right, which is not probably true, right. He says that, hey, there was this woman that he came into the taxi, and she was looking all tipsy and everything, and he saw like a opportunity and jumped behind the car, and all of things that happens. So Travis, I think he doesn't have an insight of actually what women think like, and that's actually happens to the people who are over masculinized in their lives, because you are so distant to the female, right, from the starting of her childhood, that you don't even know what the other sex is actually like.
That is true, and that is actually true for a lot of men, I think.
A lot of men,
yes, but I don't know, like it's hard to break that unless you actually make solid female friends or male friends who have female friends. Otherwise it's hard to break that.
It's like let's say that if we are talking about Western countries, it's different, but in India, where you have like still you have sitting arrangement where guys sit differently, girls sit differently, and if a guy and a girl talks to each other, it's kind of looked in a different way. I think it's pretty hard in India still, but that's why, right, we are most of the guys don't know how to talk to women, right, and that's what happens. So because that, in the scene where he takes Betsy to the porno theater, right, and he doesn't even have a thing in his mind that he's doing something wrong, because he is so distant from the female touch that he doesn't even understand that what he's doing is actually very weird.
He's very oblivious to the fact that this is a very weird place to bring women to.
Yes.
So he could have taken her to the park, he could have taken her anywhere, but then he chose the porno theater, which is weird, because that's where he's always been.
There is one another thing that he says, that when he takes Betsy there, he says that this is where most couple comes, right?
So like you know that he's a little awkward with women. He's just he has difficulties having talking to people, but then that you will have to figure that out, and it's not very
another thing that I'll tell you what, right, it tells us a little bit. He says that a lot of couple come there, like, but what do you think, in a porno theater, who will be the person of both the couple, and a guy and a girl, who will be like taking them to the porno theater? It would obviously be the guy, most probably, because they want because they want something, right? So it's like a starting to something like that, right?
And she actually says that. So so if you taking me to a porno theater is like you saying that you won't fuck me. That's
the thing. It's like his perspective only comes from the guys. Right. That is, I think that is one of his problems. And another thing is that he doesn't have a purpose in his life, right? That time. And like one of the big reasons is because the backdrop of the Vietnam War, how all the soldiers at that time actually felt like the government has wronged them, because one thing, it wasn't their war. The second thing, it was so horrific for the soldiers that went there, because it was a guerrilla war. It was almost unwinnable, and even if you won, what would you get? And the another thing that happened is, these soldiers who were like in Vietnam, they actually got villainized. If you see, at that time protests were happening, the hippie culture was there, right? So all these people who were the young people at that time, they were actually protesting for that people should not go to war, like the soldiers, bring our soldiers home. And this image was like fed into a lot of people, that the people who are going there are monsters, like they are killing children and everything. So these soldiers, first thing, they didn't know anything, like they didn't even have an option. They were drafted to war. They had to go to war, just like what happened to Muhammad Ali at that time. He had to fight a lot. He had to fight publicly.
So once you're drafted, you should appear. Otherwise, it's they'll put a suit against you.
Yes.
So to expand on the Vietnam War, so the Vietnam War we probably started in 1955, and I don't know, I think it went for a while. So the war was between North and Southern Vietnam. So the North Vietnam was actually a communist state, and then the Viet Cong, I think, were part of the Southern Vietnam, were fighting we're fighting for communist influence in the southern state as well, the southern country, Southern Vietnam. And obviously because of the Cold War aggression between Russia and the US stepped in. And when they stepped in, they're probably scuttled out years later. Obviously, they were not. They didn't fare well in the Vietnam War. So that is a very high level description, summary of the Vietnam War. So we know that. So it's a war that they didn't know. They didn't feel like it was their war. They feel like they were cheated by the government. So they come back. They're war veterans. They're facing PTSD. And one such person is Travis Bickle. And then now he has all of this existential angst. So he's 26 in the movie, and we know that. So once he comes back, so what does he do? What does he do with his life? There is lot of existential angst. So and once we talk about existential angst, you talk about existentialism. So existentialism believes that life inherently has no meaning, that you have to give it meaning. You have many existentialist philosophers like nihilists like Nietzsche. You have other philosophers like Albert Camus. You have many more. I just can't remember. There is Jean-Paul Sartre. And there's also a feminist philosopher, Simone de Beauvoir. And I think, So all of them are there. So basically the philosophy is that life inherently doesn't have meaning. There's a thing called absurdism. But then I don't think that that was something that has to do with that's something that Jean-Paul Sartre came up with. I think it was another philosopher. Anyways, the thing is that the daily mundane activities, all of them are absurd, and that life inherently has no meanings. And then the only thing that gives meaning to life is that we have to give it a purpose. We have to give it direction. And this creeps in at a time when science is slowly pervading into our lives and into our minds. So what happens to religion? Religion slowly goes away. So saying that Nietzsche says that God is dead, and then so what happens? What happens if God is dead? If there is no religion, if there is no right and wrong, what do you do? How do you give meaning to your life? And that is a really, really difficult task for anybody. So you put a man like that in a situation where there is economic recession. In that time, I think 3 years before that, there's an economic recession, and New York as a city itself, it's doing bad. So it goes into debt, and so what happens? So its level of the corporation effectiveness, like all of that goes down. So there is unemployment everywhere, and you can see people who are part of the marginalized community, they are not doing so well. And he especially shows that through black people, I guess. And unfortunately, they are, through Travis's eyes, they are mostly seen as villainous. Even though, and there's a point with Quentin Tarantino, he talks about, like, is this a movie where, this is the movie racist? Is Martin Scorsese racist? Because Martin Scorsese literally is one of the character, he plays a small character.
Yeah, he does play.
And then he uses the N-word because his wife in the movie is actually playing is actually having an affair with a black man, and then he uses the N-word and says he's going to kill her with the 44 Magnum. And then there are shots where they just slowly pan towards black people sitting in a restaurant, or there's slowly just sort of focus in on black people, right? Like there are some miscreants throwing eggs at his car, and there are these these very young fellows who are actually messing with hookers.
Not just that, there is a scene where he's like driving his taxi, and there are a bunch of I think they're teenagers, black kids.
Throwing eggs.
They're throwing eggs, right? And I think there is another scene where there is a robber.
A thief?
Yeah, a thief.
Oh yeah, yes. A
he
thief
comes into it and
and he shoots. The first person he actually shoots is a black person.
First person, yeah.
You got a shot in the leg, and you know what happens? Like after being robbed, and after shooting the black man, he is down. This guy the Italian who owns the store is so angry, and he goes on hitting the dude. Like that is the violence I greatly can't stand. So I know Martin Scorsese is not a movie maker whose focus is on violence, clearly, but then there is a lot of violence in his movies, and
obviously, yes. And Taxi Driver, it's needed.
Yeah.
Like it's a film. I think Scorsese didn't sugarcoat it with anything. He wanted to see Travis as he is. He didn't wanted to masalify it.
And not just Travis, I think society as well, how they treated black
Yeah,
people.
I think like Joker is basically like a bit more commercial version of Taxi Driver.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I feel like because
Mm-hmm.
Taxi Driver doesn't
Interesting.
give you it doesn't give you everything at your face, right? It doesn't tell you how he's feeling. It doesn't make you obvious. But Joker has many scenes which it makes obvious.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of scenes which are repeating. Definitely like New York, the color, the cinematography, and especially the scene where he's talking to his therapist.
Mm-hmm.
Right? He says that all I have is bad thoughts, negative thoughts. Right? And the same thing, he goes to the cabbie. He's one of his friends, and he says that I have bad ideas in my head.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
And both of them say the same thing before doing something really heinous. Right? Travis,
yeah. That's the inflection point in
Yeah.
Taxi Driver,
Taxi
where
Driver.
everything turns around. He says, "I'm not going to sit by, do nothing," and then he actually starts preparing himself.
Yes, he prepares like the scene where he is doing that. He's actually, he's gone to the other cabbie because it seems like he's one of the smartest people there, right? Because he's the one who's almost always talking in the cabbies group, right? So he looks at himself like as teenagers we look at like senior school seniors, right? And that's how we get his lot of influences from, right? So he sees him and he goes there and he says that like this is why how I'm feeling is not able to explain. The cabbie says that, look, Travis, a guy does a job, takes a job, and the job becomes his life, and he's not able to understand what Travis is actually saying.
That is true. He gave him. It's like going to your gym bro for advice, and then it's like your gym bro gives really shit advice. Don't take bro advice when you have existential angst.
He literally says in the end, like, look, Travis, I'm a cabbie.
Yeah.
And after that, it's sad. It happens. It flips. And the second thing what I was saying is, every time something major happens in Travis's life, especially regarding women, what he does is he gets advice, or he takes advice from men he shouldn't take. There is a scene, it's a very profound scene where he is in a taxi, he is in the cab with Scorsese's character. So Scorsese's character, he takes him in front of a building, and then he says that you have to stop here, even if your meter is going on, it's not a problem for me. I'll pay you how much it is. And he says that, look at that building, and can you like see the window? That's like my wife. And she is having an affair with the person, and he calls him the N-word. Right? Yeah. And that time he's actually gone out of a breakup. Right? You can say if it's a breakup, if you consider it as a relationship with Betsy. Like, he's gone through a thing, he's called Betsy a lot of time, and he's not able to understand what happens. So he basically doesn't have a closure, because in his mind he doesn't even think he's done something wrong. Right? And that's what happens with guys generally. When you don't have closure, you go to other bros and they give shitty advice.
Bro advice is like the worst advice ever.
Like in most cases. Yes, they are good support. I think everybody should have bros, but most of them are not right. Right.
True.
So that's the thing. Alright, so that's the thing. And he goes and at that time, in his mind he starts to think that like all women are the same. Right? And after that, when he starts preparing, Travis as a character, he doesn't take any responsibilities of his own. He's a walking contradiction. If you see how he lives and how he wants the world to be, are completely different. So there is a scene where Betsy is sitting with him in the cafe, and she tells him about a song, right? It's by Chris Christopherson, if I'm not wrong.
Christopherson.
So the lyric goes like he's a pusher, he's a prophet. Half true, like part truth, part fantasy, something like that, right?
And then a walking contradiction.
Contradictions. So Travis, he says that the whole world is like gone to shit, like the gutters are open, the city is filthy. But have you seen his own apartment? How he lives? His apartment is in shambles. He tells about like people that you should be clean, healthy, but have you seen what he eats?
At one part, he just mixes up bread with alcohol.
Alcohol or something. He's just pouring like sugar on bread and he's eating. Right? And he he's blaming the world, but he's doing the whole thing. He hates prostitutes. He hates people who are like at that time, because he's a conservative, the clothes that women are wearing, and he goes at night to porno theaters. But there is a point in here, right? Even though he goes to porno theaters, you will never see like him having a like a lustful face.
That is true, but then I like, there were a lot of questions when I saw the movie. I was not like, when I saw this movie I was like, wow, I completely understood. So there's like, because generally like with the Joker there is a lot of exposition and in dialogue saying, okay, this is what the character is, this is what the situation is, and the director sort of pushes that down. But then this is a movie where this is a character study and you have to figure out why Travis is feeling the way it is.
Right. So
I was talking about how much we as the audience have to figure out Travis's mindset. That is one big thing. So it's difficult. Sometimes you're making guesses. Sometimes we don't know if this guess is right. So, and the end is also ambiguous. So you're trying to figure out Travis's character. Never, not 100%, sure about what your guess
Joker,
is.
you're sure.
Joker, you're sure? You're very sure about who he is.
Like, I'll tell you an interesting thing about Joker. Basically, what happened is, so this is how Todd Phillips, the director of Joker, was pitching it to Warner Brothers. But Warner Brothers, they actually didn't want to take a risk of creating a Joker film outside the DCU at that time. And that time DCU was like, it wasn't going very well. So what they did is they tried to push the film. They tried to push the film away, not push the film
in, not make it.
So not make it, right? So what they did is they basically gave a 50 million budget. 50 million is like pennies if you want to have a comic book film in Hollywood, right? So first thing they gave it and the second thing, even I think Todd Phillips wasn't very sure if this movie is going to work or not, right?
I think what we nailed it was Joaquin Phoenix's
even how it is written is pretty fantastic, right? But the thing is, if you see Joker, there will be a lot of scenes on the clocks. If you see, they are all in the same time. So in case it was like a fail safe, in case the film didn't work, you could just say this film actually didn't exist anymore, it is in a separate world. But thankfully the film did really well. I think it was one of the first films, I think it was the second or third film which did 1 billion at the box office.
Wow.
1 billion is a lot.
Yeah, definitely. For a budget,
for a film which is made on a budget of 50 million, and especially if it's R rated, it's a big thing. Todd Phillips is a very big Martin Scorsese fanboy. He was actually asking Scorsese for basically producing the film for a long time.
Did he?
Yeah. So Scorsese was actually considering it also. For 4 years, Scorsese was kind of attached to the film. He wasn't in, wasn't out. After that, I think he left. And after that, Todd Phillips got what do you call good, the decent budget and everything. That's how he moved forward. But yeah, that's a good trivia.
Yeah, but I didn't know because Martin Scorsese was against Marvel movies. He didn't call it real cinema.
I think even if you see Joker, it's not like a proper comic book film, right?
It is not proper comic book.
And the thing is, I'll tell you what, right? So the difference is because you have to guess a lot, because in Joker you have been told what Travis's trauma is, why because he's been abused a lot when he was a child, what happened to his mother, what his father did. There is a scene where he goes to the asylum to meet his mother, I guess, right? There is a scene, So
that
what
is
happens
his mother,
is, So there are a lot of things in Joker that are made obvious, but not in not in Taxi Driver.
No, we don't get to know about his family history. We don't know what happened in Vietnam for him personally. And we don't know about any other things, anything outside of him driving a taxi, going to porno movies, and then probably sort of preparing himself for a war, basically.
Yeah, and the porno theater, what I feel is even though today it happens in India, especially country in India where these things are a bit taboo, right? Where do we get first so-called sex education is from?
Bro.
Not bro. The other thing that we see on the phone.
Porn.
Yeah. Oh. And that's a really bad thing to do. Right? And he also, I think this is my view of it. Travis is having some sort of late mental puberty. I'll tell you why, right? So what I have thought is like there is no backstory provided in the film, but what I think, he comes from a very conservative background, and he has lived in a small town in America. That's how it is, right? And until you are a very late age, because in conservative families, like meeting other girls and everything is like not very normal until you're of a certain age. And in certain age, let's say he was around 18 or 17, he must have been drafted to the military. So he went to military, and until the age of 24, 25, he was in the military. So he didn't have a normal life as a person should have.
Yeah, I agree.
And he doesn't have like a much idea about women, like what they like, how to be talk to them, how to behave and everything. So right now he's figuring it out. So he's sort of a mental teenager, because he has very rigid ideas also, because he didn't explore the world enough. He's been in the military for a long time, and like at that time, military guys, what kind of mentality they have, like all the sort of things, right? So that's how he has been raised. That's where he gets his very rigid ideas from.
Maybe it's okay. Yeah, maybe in that time, having no proper parental figure, possibly no one to tell him how to talk to women, how to do any of this. I think that's probably why. That makes sense. I actually had another thought. Okay, never mind. So yeah, there are a couple of good shots, no, like you said, when the inflection point, happens. Yeah. There's the inflection point where like he talks to his taxi driver friend to seek advice, and then there is red light. There's just that light that just covers his face. No, that's beautifully taken. And then there is even like in all the shots. Like these are all my favorite shots in the movie. Like,
what is your favorite shot?
I think there was a shot where of the speckles of rain on the hood of his car, and probably shooting that through those speckles of rain at the lights. I think that was one shot. The neon lights in the cities of New York. That has a bouquet, as a background for him, and then showing that's beautiful. And the ending shot was also there. And obviously then my favorite shot is in Columbus Circle, where Palantine is there, right? So okay, so I think if we were to explain the plot a little bit further, we'll have to say first, Travis approaches Betsy, a girl he likes. He's something he's spying on, and who Betsy is actually working in the office of Charles Palantine, who's a presidential candidate. And Charles Palantine, later in the movie, probably towards the climax, he's giving a speech in Columbus Circle. And that shot is just timed perfectly, because for me, like, it's just situated perfectly. Like, Charles Palantine just appears at one point, and then there you can see from his sides, right, from the statue in Columbus Circle, there are arms flayed, like this. And then when he's doing the speech, and then when there is praise, then you go to a back shot, like you take the back, so it's in a way to show victory. And then he's in Columbus Circle, right, at one point, and in straight opposite you see Travis. You see Travis Bickle in a mohawk. So the mohawk is actually literally a haircut of some Native American tribes. And then whenever there's a shot of Travis, right, you sort of search for him in sort of you pan down or you search for him. So what happens is in the last shot, right, when you go to him in a mohawk, you just go around looking for figures somewhere in the waistline, and then you slowly pan up. You see Travis with his sunglasses, his mohawk, smiling. On the other side is Palantine in Columbus Circle, and on Travis's right, you see a small signboard that says prohibited. And I think there was definitely some sort of symbolism there.
There is symbolism. There is one more thing, that the mohawk haircut that he has is actually the soldiers in Vietnam War, when they used to go to a mission which was a suicide mission that he would never get back from. Usually they used to have that kind of haircut. So he knew that he's not going to return from this.
Yeah. But also there's a bigger question. Why why did he want to kill Charles Palantine? Of all people, he could have gone and say like, I want to kill Betsy because Betsy has rebuffed me in multiple ways. I've tried to approach her and then she's rebuffed me. So why not? Why kill Charles Palantine?
Because he represents the authority. Because he represents the American government.
Okay.
Right.
Probably like the authority to which he doesn't have any agency towards. He's like showing some agency, like his place in society. So that's what he's doing.
That's what he's doing.
That's what I mean. That's what we're
also,
guessing.
he blames everything on Palantine. Like he blames everything on the government. Like you sent us to the war, which wasn't ours to fight. Like all the traumas that the war gave. Because like the Vietnam War was very gruesome. Like first thing, it was a guerrilla war that you couldn't know. There was no front lines. Right. In other wars, you know that this side there are the enemies. You have to approach that side. But in Vietnam, it was very hard because there were traps everywhere, and the enemies could literally attack you from anywhere at any time. Right. So you had to live in constant levels of anxiety all the time. So imagine living in like 2-3 years in jungles where you have mosquitoes the size of like rats, like, literally.
What?
Like they were
Like
as a metaphor, like big mosquitoes, and you have to like survive in this place. You know that in Vietnam, actually more soldiers died because of natural calamities than like other soldiers.
Oh damn! I mean, like who died during the
during the war,
during the war, during battle.
That's the thing. So first thing, he has this PTSD. The other thing is he is blaming this on Palantine. Exactly how the other attacks have happened in history. Right? Let's say for what happened with Trump recently, what happened with Rajiv Gandhi.
So you're saying this is actually a template for people who are alienated from society, who have these existential angst, and they sort of take it out on people.
Yes, in Joker it's perfectly described, right?
In Joker, and then probably you're saying that's the template mindset for these shooters.
These shooters like let's say in the end of Joker, right? He knows before he comes to this show, he knows he's going to kill. He goes there with a gun, Joker, right? And he says that like right now you're laughing at me, and before some time I was like in a sort of condition that I would, if I would die on the footpath, you guys would like walk upon me and you wouldn't even care. So Travis and Joker are the sort of people who are society don't look upon. We talk a lot about like how every person should help other ones. We should like talk about more mental health awareness, but we usually alienate people who are not very socially comfortable. They are a bit awkward. The people who don't know how to be in social circles, right? Who don't know what to say. Once let's say you are in a social circle and out of nervousness you say something that you actually don't mean. Instantly you will be alienated from the group.
Yeah.
In our social media circles, in all our stories, we'll talk a lot about mental health. We'll talk a lot about like we should kind to each other. But are we actually being? Right? We instantly judge other people.
Yeah. That's true. That
That's
makes
true,
sense.
right? That makes sense. So for me, what Scorsese says is, he doesn't sugarcoat it, and he says that look at these people for what they are, how they are. Even though it's not making sense in your head, but this is how the people are, and you have to help them. And the best help that they can have is by seeing them. Scorsese is trying to help. He's showing you that these kind of people exist. How many movies that you know that actually talk about like, see, heroism and everything. There is one hero, one guy who makes great in life. That might be like 1 in 1,000, 1 in lakhs. But what about the rest of 99% people? What happens to them?
Yeah, it's a good question, and
right.
Yeah.
So every film, and you see that like one person he's the hero and he has saved everyone. But what happens to the rest? There are people who are not able to make big in life. Let's just like Joker in his 40s, and he's not like doing very well in his life. What happens to him? He's brutally like basically, what are you going to say? Brutally treated by the society.
Yeah.
His medicines are basically cut off. He doesn't have much support from the government.
Oh yeah, makes sense. I think I think acceptance of these psychological disturbances. I think every time, right, when you say you have an issue, when you are in depression, like when you're depressed, think natural advice from families: don't be depressed, which is very actionable advice. Don't be sad, don't be depressed. So when you are sad, when you are going through terrible things, it's hard for you to come out and say it also, and that's how it's been throughout. And I think that's definitely changing now. This generation, where you are more open about your issues, where vulnerability is appreciated. Before, like, the sign of mental fortitude was that you not saying anything. Like olden days, if dad is going through a terrible lot pressure, it's like dad doesn't say anything and just keeps it on.
We forget that he's also a human.
Yeah, we forget. There are a lot of lot of examples. I think probably their dads, they just never talk about all the terrible things that they're going through.
Yes, they don't, because they're trained like that men don't cry, and men aren't supposed to be sensitive. They are not supposed to talk about these things. And also, right, there is this false sense of glory that I want to talk about, like that heroism, that the glory of death that has been fed. Like, usually what happens is, right, or through the society, like, even if you go to, like, back in time, at the time of Roman wars and everything, in every war, all the soldiers are basically fed up with this idea of glory. But do you remember any soldier from the Roman legion, from the Persian army, from, like, the wars? Most wars in history have been futile. What did the, like, most of the war, what did the Roman war made sense? Did it made sense? It was just for expansion. It was basically the people who would win the war in reality were the kings, right? And it didn't really matter, like, for soldiers. They just had to die. Most soldiers, most kings didn't knew about what their soldiers were. Most wars are also about, like, futile ideas, like religion, symbolism, and like, even though today we have, like, caste wars, we have religious wars, none of them make sense, but still we are fed this false concept of glory, right? Even if you die for your god, you'll get glory in heaven. If you die for this cause, you'll get glory. But is there any actually thing as glory, or is this just a false concept?
So you're actually questioning the idea of glory. You're saying that war itself
sometimes it makes sense, right? Sometimes when it's actually necessary, when you're defending yourself or defending
your country makes sense.
But like, if you see it in the perspective from history, most wars have been futile. They haven't, because the idea of nation is pretty new. Like, the idea of nation is most probably 100 years old. Before that, it used to be empires, and empires used to be controlled by the kings. So indefinitely, in the end, you are dying for the king. So if I tell you, right, this is an interesting thing.
This is also makes sense. I mean, the idea of glory makes sense to men because you're fighting for an ideal which is greater than yourself, which also gives you some meaning to your life. And if you take away some sort of angst from your life also, like, hey, yeah.
Yes. Because, like, what we need is basically, one thing is activity, and the activity shouldn't be futile. If I tell you, like, you have to do certain thing, but you won't get you won't get any reward in the end, but most people won't do it because we need a purpose for doing that. Right.
And the reward being sort of like some sort of an emotional high is much more desirable than anything else.
There is a concept which is talked a lot about, that many men, like most men, are looking for a glorious death.
And probably Travis is also. So we'll get to the end, like we'll get to the end, the climax of the story, and then we'll talk about what is great about the movie, and then what we think wasn't great.
I think we should talk about his relationship with Iris.
Yeah, and then we'll get to the climax.
Yeah, then we'll get
so Iris is actually a prostitute in the streets of New York.
She's a teenager.
She's probably 12 or 13. Yeah. And what happens is Travis is waiting with his taxi, and so Iris actually gets into the taxi and say, help a girl out, man, and then asks her to asks him to flee. And then what happens is his pimp comes in, throws in like a crushed $20, and then takes her away. All right. And after that, he holds on to that $20. He never gives it away. Yeah. So he holds on to that $20. And then that's very symbolic, because what happens is he gives away that $20 when he takes Iris to that room. You remember he talks to... so that $20 is always because he feels like that's dirty money.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So he doesn't use it. He always keeps that crushed $20 and then he gives it away. And then he takes Iris and then he convinces Iris, so whatever you're doing is wrong. You can live a better life. There's a commune somewhere else, he would say. Like, I don't remember where the commune is. Arizona?
Velmont is
I
there?
don't know.
Yeah,
I don't remember. But then there's a commune somewhere else. It's better you go there. And then Iris is only half convinced. And then what happens? The pimp, sort of like in a very toxic relationship, right? There is the person sort of tries to convince the victim, saying, no, everything is good, I'll take care of you, you will never feel hurt again, I will never hurt you, saying all of those nice things. And then probably Iris wouldn't have left. And it's a good thing that Travis Bickle doesn't try to kill Valentine, and then instead goes and kills Iris's pimp,
Matthew.
Yeah, Matthew.
His name is Matthew and she calls him Sport.
Yeah, so kills that guy, the guy in the hallway, and the guy who's actually trying to have sex with her. But then, like, it's just so disgusting to us with someone who's like 12 and a half years old.
Yeah, and it's probably the ending scene is my favorite scene, where he's pointing the gun.
You mean the finger gun with him? No.
That also, and also when he's standing in the alley and he's pointing the gun. It's one of the ending scenes.
It's one. What do you mean? Which one? Like he takes the gun out. He parks the car, takes the gun out.
He goes in the alley and then he shoots. That scene. It's amazingly shot.
Which scene, buddy? Like after shooting Sport?
Yeah.
And then he goes into the hallway. You mean not the alley? The hallway. Okay, that's what you mean. And then after that, there's this beautiful scene, this aerial shot that just sort of pans down and then leaves and exits the hallway. Sort of saying that, okay, that's the end of
I think Iris, no, she gives him the purpose that he was looking for.
He did.
She does basically. She lets him be the cowboy that he wanted to be.
I guess there are two women who are juxtaposed, right?
Juxtaposed, yeah.
So like one where he's not able to connect romantically or emotionally, and the other woman he's actually trying to save.
Yeah.
So that's the relationship his characters have with women. Yeah.
That's also the thing.
So okay, we have that, and then Travis later becomes a hero.
In the end, yeah.
In the end, supposedly, or we don't know if it's a dream sequence.
There is still ambiguous.
He becomes a hero. He meets Betsy again. She gets on his taxi. And then he drops her. Doesn't take money for the taxi ride. And then says so long. And then he suddenly looks at the rearview mirror. Something happens. And then that's it.
You still see his anxious eyes.
Probably,
it's a sign that Travis will probably do these things. He'll fall into the circle.
Yeah, because that existential angst still exists. It is not. So he's become a hero for a while. And what will happen after that? Yeah, so that's a big question. There's a lot of moral ambiguity in the movie. There is also, if I were to criticize anything in the movie, it's that, it's us from this generation looking at an older movie and saying that, oh no, we don't understand it completely. We just have a lot more questions than we have answers for, and trying to figure out answers. So, like, you see a movie from that age and you see a movie from this age, and you know that you have all the answers. You understand what the character is about. You understand clearly what the character is trying to say, and that is actually pushed to you in multiple ways, either through the costume, the music design, and whatnot.
So, like, what did you like the most in the film?
I like the visuals, and the lighting. It's my favorite. The symbolism in the Columbus Circle, right? That was kind of favorite. The background music was wonderful. And the fact that this was completely a character sketch, right? Well, I haven't seen a character sketch like this.
Yes, yeah.
So this is a wonderful movie. Anybody who wants to like watch, this is not a very pleasant and a family setting movie. This is a movie where you sit and then you slowly sort of read a book. That's the kind of movie that this is for.
Yeah, probably we should go to this film with an open mind, and it doesn't fit any genre, I guess.
Yeah, I wouldn't put it in any genre. Maybe it has a.
It is a film. I don't think it can be It cannot be critiqued. It's something that it stands alone. Like, even if you talk today, there are very few films which are like Taxi Driver, and even if they are inspired by Taxi Driver. So Taxi Driver was like one of its kind film at that point. So yeah, I liked everything about the film.
Yeah, I love everything too. So do you have any critique about the movie? Anything that you think, okay, wish like, oh, Martin Scorsese, please?
I think like it's a good thing that the film makes us think, but we could have gotten like a little bit more insight into Travis's life, which would like help us understand about his motivation, like why he does things with the way he does.
Yeah, also I'm just beginning to think where the audience is, in 1976 way more smarter than the audiences today. Makes me think.
Probably.
Makes me think that.
Okay, guys. So this was the episode 1 of
But before we go, I just want to add like one line that I accidentally read from this book, and because I was reading this book. And I've lost the line. No, I have not. Okay, so we have. This is going to be our first episode.
Yeah.
And before we do, I just want to add one line or maybe a few lines from Alexander Pope about criticism. So it goes like this: "But you who seek to give and merit fame and justly bear a critic's noble name, be sure yourself and your own reach to know how far your genius, taste and learning go. Launch not beyond your depth." So this just tells us that we have to be very humble about our opinions. So we're just starting out, and we're just hopefully we've given our fair and very humble opinion about the movie. And this is, after all, Martin Scorsese. So
the great Martin Scorsese.
So yeah.
So this was the first episode. Hope you guys like it.
Yeah. See you in the next one.
Lovely. Amazing. Oh man.
Have a look.
It's 52.
Oh God.
बीच में बहुत सारा खाली चीज भी था.
इसको कैसे रोकना कैसे?